We're going to close out for the first part, right after that.
I'm really grateful to be here. There are things that I'm hearing that, because I come from a very different space, that are sometimes confusing. So I appreciate what Dr. Blackman said about wilderness being a political construct. Okay. It's very helpful. It does show us that we continue to stay alienated from ourselves, regardless. I have a question about the specificities of place, because I do wonder if this need to identify exactly where we're from, exactly who we belong to, exactly this, exactly that, isn't in fact a hang-up of the Enlightenment that we have absorbed ourselves, forgetting that the earth is a sacred place, and as you said, no matter where you stand, you are home. It is sacred, and because we all exist as atoms, everything's connected to one another, everything and everybody. And this notion of the ummah, the notion of the collective, of the church, the kanda, speaks to community, and it isn't just a community of human beings of this time and space. It is a community of human beings who came before us and those who will come after us that need to be thought of in this discourse. I got a little confused and a little concerned about the nature of technology when that was brought up, because technology should not be thought of as an awful thing. It is not a satanic thing. We have to remember that the very minerals that make the technology that we use today were found where? On this continent, in the Congo. Who invented the technologies that we use, the computer, the GPS system, the telephone? They're African descendants. Now, the very system, the binary system of the technologies that we use is based on that of the Fa. The ones and the zeros that make up codes represent the positive and negatives, the openings and closings of our divination practices in African-based traditions. Now, that people use it incorrectly is another matter. Perhaps we need to understand and keep ourselves open and learn something about what our traditions were prior to the conquest that made some of us Muslim, that made some of us Christian. Now, I am acknowledging the fact that there were people Africans who defined Christianity themselves, defined Judaism themselves. It wasn't an outside imposition. But I think the better part of our notions of what Christianity and Judaism means comes from an outside place, a place of alienation. And oftentimes, I'm sorry to say, those places have been, the practices that have been put in place, certainly not by all, but many, have served to oppress your other brothers and sisters. The people who wear the beads that I do, the people who dress as I do, the people who embrace the environment and earth, air, fire, and water as I do. So we need to take a chance. We talk about repentance. Repentance is one thing because we have harmed each other. Reconciliation is the important thing here, because we do need to create avenues for dialogue, and this is part of an ongoing dialogue we've been having with each other for centuries. But it has to continue until we get to that place of true reconciliation, where we can learn each other's knowledges and logics and understand how we arrived at the spaces that we do. We need to reinvent ourselves. We need to reinvent our thinking. It's unlearning certain things and rethinking and reinventing and borrowing languages, words and constructs from each other's various communities, so that we look like a very different people, that we look like the true African people that we are, that we can truly love each other as those atoms that recognize and pull and come together to create our physical beings, to create these eyeglasses, to create the water that's in this bottle. We have to come together that way. This is a process that is a long one. It is a process that can be discouraging. It's a process that requires our patience. It is a process that is going to require our forgiveness as well, because we are going to make mistakes. But together we shall prevail.
Thank you so much. We have Reverend Matthew to make a closing statement before we go to Q&A.
As a point of reflection and also a question, if it's okay, I choose to be transparent here. I am Christian, and the Bible is my sacred text. However, I don't see the Bible as God's book about a holy people. I interpret the Bible as a people's book about a holy God. And there's a difference. It makes it no less sacred. But when I understand that God, God's self, did not write it, then there's room for the peculiarities of my story to be sacred. That's important in the following question that I want to pose to us. Who is this God? And who are we that have been created in this God's image that are so awful and so off task that we deserved to be enslaved? Who is this God that is punishing us in this way, that will separate us from ourselves, although we are created in this God's image? Where does the notion that we deserve somehow where we find ourselves? I wrestled with that. I don't see the wilderness as a necessary consequence of our sin or disconnection. I offer in that line of thought the fact that Jesus also went to the wilderness. I do see purposes of the wilderness experience. And I'm wondering if we spend so much time lamenting that we have wilderness, that we don't see it as purposeful at all. In fact, wilderness forces us to seek direction. Wilderness connects us to our inner selves and causes us to reach for that which is deepest within us. Wilderness reacquaints us with the vastness and the sovereignty of a God who is still God even when we can't figure it out. And so, as my brother was saying, and one of my sisters was saying as well, this image of God really gets to the crux of the matter. Who is this God? And when I hear that because we have done something, that we are here, then I have to ask, then is God blind? Because clearly God sees what else has been done and has been done to us. And I don't see that same kind of punitive ostracization, cut off from land, years of oppression happening. So either I've got to reframe my mind or I've got to find a different God.
Wow.
Dr. Blackman, the sentiments of her heart was certainly that of myself and many others who have come out of the Christian church. We can't help but look at the injustice and see the imbalance. I saw the mothers and fathers sitting in the church, particularly our grandmothers, crying before God, seeking answers. I saw the depravity of my people all over the world, no matter where we were. And I said, what's wrong with this God? And what I found is the way in which he's been presented to us is not who he is. Not that he's not real, not that his judgment's not real, or necessary. But what you're seeking now when you said, can he not see what's happening? I see the same behaviors that we do, and others not receive the same level of judgment, but that time is coming. And it's all around us. And that's another significance of that 400-year period. When Moses went before the children of Israel, that was the covenant between Israel and their God. The Bible tells us time and time again that there are many gods. We just don't seem to understand that because of what we've been taught, how we've been taught. Many people say that they're Christians or they read the Bible. And I share this with people often because I really want them to think about it. When we say that I don't believe the Bible because of this, or that's not my interpretation, really what they're saying to a degree is that's not my opinion. You cannot have an interpretation of something you don't read nor study. And many of us are not reading and we're not studying. So you don't understand nothing. What you have is an opinion that somebody told you. Your pastor, when we came on those shackles, the Bible tells you you would be forced to serve both wood and stone. That wood, a part of it is that cross. That stone, a part of it is that cobblestone. And we were forced. All through Africa, all these converts into Islam. It was through wars, through battles. We talk about the Christianity. You be all the way down from we were in Portugal, everywhere. You were destroyed until you bowed and accepted Caesar Borgia. We wasn't Caesar by the time. You didn't have necessarily that image. But unto the God that they gave us. So when we say, who is this God? When we go back and we study that word, in part it is about a people, about their God, but it is from their God. And I know as those of us who are believers, I hope you've had those encounters where you knew God was on you and He was working through you, speaking through you, gave you understanding you didn't know. So it's no more different than the people that were completely dedicated and didn't have the necessary distractions that we have today where they could hear from God clearly. And had a culture and understanding that reverence God. And this is why culture is so important and our culture continues to be attacked. When you think of what culture really is a way that people respond to their God. So when we look at the Hindus and everybody else, they are honoring their God. We don't know who our God is, so we everywhere. He gave us a way to live and be. That's your culture. Our culture is not our own culture. Our culture is given to us from the media here, at least in America. It's not organic. It's not us. We don't wear what we wear. We don't eat what we're supposed to eat. We don't do anything we're supposed to be doing. We are at a place in many respects and we find ourselves coming back together. But it's being fed and forced to us. It has been since we got there.
But even those interpretations of the Bible are interpretations.
Listen, and that's what I'm saying. I don't want to argue the point. What I'm saying to you is perhaps put on a different lens and study the scriptures. First of all, he told
No. I do study the scriptures.
No, listen.
What I'm saying is the Bible, as we read it, is also interpretation. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. What I am saying is this God, who we are saying would punish us inequitably with everyone else, yet we are created in God's image, is a God, I have to say, who is it that we have created? Who is it that we created? And when we look at the sacred scripture, we must also look at the fact that the sacred scripture that we are reading in itself is interpreted.
Thank you so much. That's exactly how we want to end this first panel right here. Thank you so much. We're going to have a short break, about 15-30 minutes, then we're going to allow the audience, I'm sure you've heard a lot, for some questions and some answers. So let's keep this going in about 15 minutes. Whether it's a comment, a question, we're going to keep it to about 2 minutes tops, so hopefully, when you get the mic, of course, limit those questions or comments, and please be respectful of the diversity of beliefs in this sacred space that we're in. So when you speak for whatever language you're speaking in, Fanti, English, if you're speaking in the dialect, we can translate for you if need be. So feel free to ask your question. We're going to keep it to 1 to 2 minutes tops. And if you want to direct your question to any specific panelists, you can do that as well. So I'm going to call upon, I have a few people that have already asked to speak or make their comments. So I'm going to give the mic. Why don't you step up? Yeah, right. Well, you're going to introduce yourself, and then you can come up to the aisle. Please just introduce yourself, and you can make your comment or have a question.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Boche. I'm a professor of African history, and I'm happy to be here. I speak from the perspective of historical materialism, and one thing I think I've been hearing is the place of providence in history.
Will you speak up?
Providence in history. In other words, thinking along the lines of St. Augustine's, you have a path of history, and God is in charge of it. God is the primary mover of history. God directs the trajectory of history, and there's a teleology of history, a goal of history. And if I should think about this as I consider the history of the transatlantic slave trade, then I'm beginning to get a sense that God had a hand in it. And if God had a hand in it, then God had to use human beings if God was punishing some people for the offenses, and we are talking about repentance, and God had to use, because God couldn't come down to do it, He had to use some people to do it. That takes us to the question of reparations. If we say that God made some people to do His work for him or her, then how can we talk about reparations? How can we ask those people that were just pawns, minions of God, to pay for reparations? Thanks.
Was that to any specific person, or does anybody want to? Yes. Yeah, right behind you. Right.
I don't know why you assume that God is involved in this. You know, again, there is this problematic of framing things within an Abrahamic context. And so, from the African-based traditions, God, Oludumare, Yahweh, whatever you want to refer to as God, yes, exists. We're a monotheistic religion like everybody else is here. But we also have this position that we've been provided with a series of options. There are intermediaries, there are ancestors, we call them the Vodun, the Loa, the Nkisi, the Orisha. There are paths that are provided to us that allow us to be better governors of our lives. God is there. But what makes you think she doesn't have other things to do? Have you looked at how vast the universe is? Do you honestly think that we're the only form of intelligent life? And I say intelligent in quotations here.
That's right.
We can't be. This is an arrogance on our part. There's something much bigger than us.
Right.
Yes.
So I think she's got other things to do.
That's right.
And she gave us the tools that we need to make things right, or to make them wrong. But to keep them positive or negative, to create a state of balance for ourselves, we have to assume responsibility for ourselves. We have to assume responsibility for each other. We must assume responsibility for our communities. We must assume responsibility for the earth, the air, the fire, water, the nature, the environment that we're in. We are responsible for that.
Thank you, sir.
God gave us, He gave us a brain and a heart and spirit, and a form of understanding that, allows us to, again, be in rhythmic dialogue with the universe. And we have stepped away from that. We've been pushed away from that as well. So I don't think that it's accurate to assume that everyone here, follows this sort of theological argument of God's primacy in all mundane human matters. We too are responsible for what we do. We are the architects of our own lives, okay, and responsible for each other. to that end, we use juridical constructs are based on the canons of the churches, of the sacred texts, where there are sacred texts. And not every tradition has a book to refer to. Some of us, many of us, have to learn how to live in the world and are trained in very specific institutions, societés, terreros, cofradías. There are numerous names of learning, numerous names of formation, what we call formation, where our ori, our head, our character, our iwopele, the nature of our being is formed. Where we understand the principle of kanda, which is community, where we understand that tout moun c'est moun, meaning I am a person with a history. I am a moun because I am the summation of many generations of people who came before me. I'm not just Dorothy Desir. There's Ade, there's Senatus, there is Illuminati. They're all my ancestors who are in this room, right along with yours, who define who and what I am. And so my history, my people need to be honored and respected. Just like every single person here, all of you have your people here, and they need to be honored and respected as well. That's why I opened up with the words honor and respect. And so when things are out of sorts, when they're out of balance, then how do we recreate balance? How do I keep myself in check? So I'm not busy knocking on my brother over here. I'm not causing him to have this sort of domino effect where everybody is out of sorts. Then eventually the whole room is tense and we're uncomfortable and unhappy with ourselves and each other. We have to assume responsibility for this. Okay? We're all breathing the same air. And so if we send out positive energy and goodness into that air, we're all going to take that in. If we start every meeting, every encounter with water. We pour libation to the ancestors, and then we take that cup of water and we share it among ourselves. We all take a little sip to remind ourselves that we are one place, that we are made of one matter. That is water. Again, our traditions connect us because they're eco-theological. They connect us to each other. They connect us to the spaces that we inhabit. They encourage us to take care and nurture these things, that we are the first guardians of these spaces that we inhabit, and we have to take the responsibility for that. We can't, there's like, 940 million African descendants on this continent alone? There's the sheer number, when we acknowledge that God, He is omnipotent and omnipresent, but He is omnipotent and omnipresent in each and every single one of you. Each and every single one of us is a manifestation of God's thoughts, behavior, and love.
Thank you. Thank you. Pastor Broly, if you want to respond, just 2 to 3 minutes.
I'll make it even briefer than that. The word responsibility, you say it slowly enough. Responsibility. It's our ability to respond. And with that being said, it is inside of us to be able to respond to anything that's happening in our world. But what I wanted to talk about and add to this dialogue is not just the theology of talking about what has happened over these 400 years, but let's talk about the psychology of it. If I psychologically believe I deserve something, then I will accept anything my oppressor gives me. And so I just want to be real cautious that we don't move to the point of acceptance as a punitive act of God, that God is saying to us, hey, you deserve this to happen to you, and we've accepted that. Who does it serve psychologically to believe that?